the NFC West is very interesting. The 49ers, the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Seattle Seahawks. Only one team won this week, which benefits the Niners after losing against Chicago. The Cardinals lose. The Rams lose. I mean, this is arguably the best division in the NFC, one of the best divisions in football. And now you're going into week number 2, and the Niners need to show up this week. They really do. And they have a hard task. They really do this week. As much as you look at all these different teams, the Cardinals, the Rams, even the Seahawks played the Broncos, and it wasn't an easy game for them, but they pulled off a win. Nobody thought Geno Smith was going to win, okay? Nobody and their mother thought Geno Smith was going to win on Monday Night Football, but he did. What are your thoughts in this division? I mean, everybody is picking the Rams to win this division, but the 49ers, a lot of people don't trust Trey Lance. Nobody does. And maybe that's why they brought Jimmy Garoppolo back. Maybe that's why they gave him a $7 million extension for this year, and he's the highest paid backup quarterback in the NFL. I don't know why they did it, but obviously there's a reason behind it. And then there's the Cardinals. I'm looking forward to watching them on Hard Knocks, but that defense looked really bad in Week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs team. And I still don't know what Kyler Murray is with Kingsbury. What is going on in this division? Where do you see this division falling this year?
So my preseason prediction was I had the 49ers winning the division at 11-6. I had a lot of question marks about their depth, and I felt like there was a lot more to that Matthew Stafford injury than was being reported on, and it's still early, but there were times in that game against Buffalo where he looked like he was throwing from different arm angles, and it didn't look like it was a situation where that was by choice. It looked like he was compensating a bit on some of those throws. So I just think that they're a team where they can't absorb missing a player like Stafford for an extended period or even not having him near 100%, which I think is a very realistic possibility, unfortunately, based on what's being reported with the stuff he's dealing with his elbow. The Cardinals, they're a team that's really fascinating because they've given the 49ers problems in recent years, but they just seem to falter down the back stretch of every season, and I think a lot of that just has to do with them not having depth on the defensive side of the ball either, and they have a couple injuries here or there, and it's not something they're able to overcome. And then with Seattle's the ultimate, no matter what the situation is, throw the record out because they beat the 49ers 16 of the last 20 times they've played.
Which is unbelievable.
It's just one of those things where it's funny. 49ers fans hate talking about it, but I think even they, the point where you can't ignore it, you can't make excuses for it. It just happens. Even last season, when the 49ers were a playoff team and the Seahawks were far from it, they managed to pull out both of those wins. It's a little different now, obviously. Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson aren't there anymore. But it's one of those things where until the 49ers start stacking some wins against them, you almost have to go into these games assuming that it's going to be a dogfight and be a battle for the 49ers throughout. So, I still think the 49ers have a chance to win that division. I think that, them, the Rams, the Cardinals are all going to be somewhere between 8 and 11 wins. I don't think one single team from this division is, vying for the 1 seed or is winning 13 or 14 games. I just think the schedule is too tough. All the teams in the division have to play the AFC West, which is extremely talented. And we've seen even the NFC South, who's the other division they'll face off against. There's some really talented teams in Tampa, New Orleans, and even, Carolina looks like a team that's formidable as well. So I expect the 49ers, I'm not wavering. I'm one of those people where I stick to my predictions until they're wrong, and then I'll hold the L and own it when the time comes. I still think 10 or 11 wins gets this division title and gets a home playoff game for whoever ends up doing it. And I just think the 49ers defense and their depth is too good to overlook. And unless we're halfway through the season and Trey Lance isn't progressing at all, and calls for Jimmy G get louder and all that turmoil is going on, I have no reason to waver off the pick I made preseason. But I do think it was a fascinating storyline week 1 that you have these heavyweight teams at the top, they all lose, and then Seattle with Geno Smith wins the revenge game at home.
Come on! You don't trust Geno Smith, the great and powerful Geno Smith, in a division where you have a young rookie like Trey Lance, you have Kyler Murray who can't stay healthy, and I don't know, a Matthew Stafford who did win a Super Bowl last year that's not 100% healthy. Why not say Geno's the best quarterback in the division right now? I mean, I'd throw up. And I definitely wouldn't pick him in my fantasy. But, hey, he's the only one with a win right now. So maybe he goes into week 2, wins another one, and they're 2-0 Seattle without Russell Wilson.
I'll tell you what, I made a lot of jokes last season about how I thought Geno was the best quarterback on the team for them because I just felt it feels like at times Russell Wilson misses so many throws over the middle where he's just not even seeing it. And it's hilarious because I have a lot of friends who are Seahawks fans in the Seattle area, and they're like, whoa, what happened? What changed with Geno? I'm like, well, he can see over the line of scrimmage, and that's what happened. He had a quarterback that can see over the middle of the field, and he was 23 and 28. Like, again, it wasn't anything that was crazy.
Impressive,
I know you guys are familiar with him in New York, but he is somebody where I can see the Seahawks where they're, I know a lot of people thought they were going to tank. I don't think a Pete Carroll-led team is ever going to go into a season tanking. Pete Carroll, for whatever your opinion is on him, I've watched this guy closely for the last 20 years between USC and Seattle. His teams are going to come ready to play. They're going to be disciplined on special teams. They're going to have a solid defensive game plan. Whether or not they have the players to execute it is another story. But I still see Seattle pulling out, 6 or 7 wins.
The Geno Smith revenge game was definitely a weird one, and then you had to experience the Dante Pettis one, unfortunately.
Yes, and so I'm a big Dante Pettis guy, to be honest with you.
I was two out of the draft.
I've always thought that he was somebody. So it's so funny. I'm a Cal Bears fan, unfortunately, and I remember watching a game where Pettis went for 3 touchdowns against them here in Berkeley, and it was like 2016. So when the Niners drafted him, I was ecstatic. I saw a ton of him. I'm a Pac-12 guy, so I watched him a ton. I just feel like it's a situation where he has so much talent. I know he was in New York for a little bit with the Giants as well. The route running abilities there's times where he looks like he can be that guy. I just don't know how it hasn't come together for him yet. And I thought it was so poetic that he was the guy to catch that back-breaking touchdown that ultimately opened the floodgates. So I'm with you on, 49ers fans are obviously bummed about the loss, but the Dante Pettis revenge game was a storyline that I'm not going to lie. I was very, very much here for,
I'm a Giants fan, so I actually liked Dante Pettis when he was there the 1 year or two, and he's not going to be a star, but he liked him as like a number 3 type receiver. So my question, you mentioned calls about Jimmy G from the 49ers fan, but we've also been hearing rumors of calls of Jimmy G as a potential trade from the Dallas Cowboys.
The Cowgirls, come on.
With Dak Prescott's injury. So even if it's not the Cowboys or anyone, the Cowboys or anybody else, could you still see the 49ers still try to move Jimmy Garoppolo, being he's only on a 1-year deal, if Trey Lance does play well?
So this is my whole take on it. I don't think the 49ers are going to be working the phone lines actively trying to shop Jimmy. But if Dallas calls and they're desperate and Dak's going to be out for, 3/4 of the season and Jerry Jones doesn't have the patience to have another losing year, if they get really desperate and offer a 2nd-round pick or something like that, then I think John Lynch will be open and willing to listen. But I don't think it's a situation where the 49ers are going to go out of their way to move him. I think for the number they got him at, he gives them a level of security where no matter what they say about Trey Lance, they know they have Jimmy G in their back pocket where if things go, again, if he gets injured or if things aren't going the way they want, they have somebody that the locker room believes in, that they're not going to have to take a bunch of time, teaching the offense to absorbing the playbook and all that stuff. And as good as Brock Purdy looked for 262nd pick in the draft, being Mr. Irrelevant, if Trey Lance goes down, there's a outcome where you put Jimmy G in and the 49ers still have a chance of being a playoff team this year. If Trey Lance goes down and you put Brock Purdy in, it would take some extreme optimism to convince yourself that they're still a playoff team. I do think the Dallas thing is interesting because I wonder how long it's going to take Jerry Jones and the Cowboys brain trust to watch Cooper Rush. No offense to Cooper Rush. I don't know how much of him they're going to be able to watch before they're like, all right, we need to do something. This is desperation time. They've been on the verge for years. In my opinion, they had one of the more talented rosters in football last year, and losing that playoff game at home to the 49ers the way they did, I'd imagine that leave a bad taste in anybody's mouth, but especially Jerry Jones. So it's a really fascinating discussion. I think it's something where it could take one weekend of really bad Cooper Rush, and they're on the phone lines like, all right, we're going to have to give up a pick we didn't feel comfortable giving up a week ago. But desperate teams make desperate offers, and I think that's where the 49ers are at.
I think it's crazy that they decided to part ways with Jimmy Garoppolo. This is a guy that took you all the way to an NFC title game last year, was one game away from going to the Super Bowl. And I understand you drafted this kid. You gave up a significant amount of draft stock for this kid. This kid is unproven. He barely had a college season in the COVID year. He played, one game? He was a top 10 pick. A lot of people thought they were reaching with Trey Lance. But nevertheless, I heard that the 49ers wanted Zach Wilson, but they had no chance of getting him because of the whole Jets thing. But you look at Jimmy Garoppolo. I would have just gone into the season with Jimmy G. If Jimmy G started to lose, then I bring in the kid. I mean, you have a chance to win a championship this year. You have a good roster, have a good defense, you have weapons, you have a chance to win. And Jimmy G, I think, gives you the best chance to win. I just think I think you're reaching, and I am not a Kyle Shanahan fan. If you know who I am, I think he's a very overrated head coach. I never liked him, and I don't even like the guys that worked for him, the Mike LaFleurs of the world, who are right now running my organization as an offensive coordinator. He stinks. Okay, I don't want him there, but that's just my opinion. And then obviously I like Robert Saleh. He just needs to stay away from those receipts, if you know what I mean. But I don't know if I trust this kid, and I don't know if I trust Kyle Shanahan going to this kid as early as he has when I don't know if he's ready. I don't think he's ready, and it might set this team back, and team, people might take shots at the San Francisco 49ers 5-6 games into the season when they're 1-4 or 1-5 in their first 6 games, and you have this kid leading the way when you had a chance to start the season with Jimmy G, and he gives you the best chance to win. Am I right or wrong? Do you really believe that Trey Lance was the right pick starting the season in this early season, going with the rookie?
I think for they already made the decision to draft him, and he's here. So in this moment, yes, I think they had to. My biggest concern and kind of where I've been second guessing was the decision to not move off of Jimmy G. I think that was something that was justifiable. I think that there was room for upgrade, but pivoting to not only a rookie, but a very unproven rookie, as you said, to me, it's unfair to two different groups of people, right? It's unfair to the 49ers veterans in that locker room who are going to have to deal with the growing pains, who, signed on to be a part of this championship caliber roster that is capable of making a deep playoff run. They've made 2 in the last 3 years. And I also think it's really unfair to Trey Lance, who is a rookie quarterback, who is going to need some time to grow. And the expectation is you need to hit the ground running right out of the gate because you have such a talented team, because you have all these playmakers. He doesn't get the same, amount of leeway that a lot of younger quarterbacks do. So my whole thing is that, you had guys like Matthew Stafford. There's the rumors that Tom Brady was interested and the 49ers weren't interested in him. A lot of that stuff, we may never know the full truth on of how those things unfolded behind the scenes. But if that were true, to me, the mistake wasn't drafting Trey Lance. To me, the mistake would have been turning down a guy like Tom Brady, because I'm not saying that you can just find a Trey Lance in any draft class, but I would have much rather seen the 49ers take a swing on the younger quarterback after having Tom Brady come play for 2 or 3 years with this team. I believe, and I will take this to my grave, that if you put Tom Brady on either of the last 2 49ers teams,
they
even
win.
Losing Bosa in 2020,
they win.
They're the very least a playoff team, and you get Tom Brady in the playoffs, anything can happen. So that, to me, was the more egregious mistake, was kind of having this window where you have a team that's ready to win now. You identified that you needed to move on from Jimmy and get an upgrade, but the window doesn't really line up with the team. And I'm sure you can appreciate, as a Jets fan, not easy to build a good roster from top to bottom. There's a lot of NFL franchises that struggle to do it. The 49ers struggled to do it for the majority of the last 20 seasons. And to finally have that in place and then have everything riding on a quarterback whose development is going to have to be accelerated as much as Trey Lance's is, to me, it creates a lot more unneeded pressure that's already there for a young quarterback making that transition.